It happened when I was 8. We had just gotten back from my aunt's house, and my parents were having a shouting match in the living room. My dad was calling my mom a whore, and my mom was making violent jabs at my dad's weight. They sounded like they were on the edge of a divorce, but that's how they sounded just about every day. I was up in my bed with my flashlight, trying not to listen. All of my attention was focused on the book. This book wasn't for kids. The girls in the book had breasts and would talk about their secret needs. People smoked cigarettes, and there were boys who would drink alcohol in dimly lit bars while talking about betrayal. If there wasn't Mummy hugging the almost naked lady on the cover, I never would have even noticed it. But earlier that day, while sitting on my aunt's toilet, I noticed it. Once I started reading, the only thing that got me off the seat was my mom banging on the door telling me to hurry up. It was time to go back home. Unfurling the Mummy was a novel about an archaeologist who marries a man that has no interest in the past. She sets off on an expedition to explore the pyramids and finds out that not all the mummies were dead. The book was filled with all sorts of ideas that were both disgusting and exciting to my prepubescent mind. I only had a couple of pages left, but I knew that as soon as I would finish the book, I would go back to page 1 and start reading it again. A plate broke in the living room. More screaming. My mom slammed the door and got in her car. She probably drove off to her boyfriend's. My dad slammed his bedroom door, paced around for a while, and then fell asleep. Outside of the sound of the leaky faucet in our bathroom, the house was completely still. As the Mummy carried the young archaeologist to his secret pyramid, I realized I needed to pee. I fished a gummy bear wrapper out of my trash, tore a thin sliver off, and placed it in the novel as a bookmark. The ending would have to wait. The house always seemed much bigger in the darkness. As I tiptoed towards the bathroom, I started to regret not taking my flashlight with me. The still silence of the house invited much scarier thoughts than mummies. I sped up a bit. I just wanted my bladder empty. I got to the bathroom door, swung it open, reached for the light, but then I froze. 2 tiny orbs of light stared at me from the dark. Something was hiding in the shadows. I immediately shut the door. Leaning up against the door, the rest of the house became much calmer. Whatever was dangerous, whatever scary presence wanted to eat me wasn't hiding in the quiet hallways. It was in the darkness of the bathroom. For a while, I wanted to go wake up my dad, but as the initial shock of seeing the eyes wore off, I decided to be brave. The young archaeologist was brave enough to make her way into poorly lit tombs filled with giant scarabs. I could handle whatever was hiding in my bathroom. I hoped that the only thing that was on the other side of the door was just a mixture of weird reflection in my obnoxious imagination. Shutting my eyes, I opened the door and hit the light switch. Whatever bravery I had gathered on my way into the bathroom had dissipated. I wasn't alone. Beyond the pounding of my little heart, I could hear something else, a rising and falling whimper. Oh, the whimper shook, as if the simple existence of the sound was drawing at some fading strength. Oh. My curiosity wrestled control of my eyes. I looked at the creature in front of me. It all happened so quickly. I couldn't have seen him for more than a couple of seconds, but the memory of what I saw sitting in the bathroom when I was 8 would be scratched into my memory for decades. He was unlike any little boy I had ever seen. His skin was completely hairless and wrapped around his skeleton like a rubber band that was about to burst. Where his eyes should be, there were simply 2 cracked pockets emitting a sad, white light. When he noticed me, he extended both his arms toward me, all while staying seated on the toilet. His ribcage was so fragile you could see a hint of his heart struggling to pump blood. With each beat, a sluggish wave of pressure would spread through his thin veins. His arms shook beneath their own weight. Oh. I screamed, pissed myself, and ran as far away as I could. No one has ever even considered that what I saw that night could have been real. My dad made a show of checking through the bathroom after he retrieved my broken-down ass from the garden. The bathroom had been completely empty. He wouldn't let me go back to bed until I admitted that there was no strange boy hiding in there. My mom got into a giant spat with my aunt about the mummy book. Apparently, reading trashy romance novels about people having sex with animated corpses was responsible for my hallucination that night. Visiting my aunt whenever my dad needed alone time was no longer an option. Instead, we would have to go to my mom's boyfriend's place. He became my stepdad. We moved in, spent a couple of years there, and then he became my ex-stepdad. We moved out, and now he's just some guy. I did my round of school counselor and therapy visits. Men with well-manicured beards and stern-looking women with strange sculptures in their offices all agreed that my little incident was simply a means of me lashing out about the situation at home. I had enough conversations with people who had diplomas on their walls that I started to believe that the creature was, indeed, a figment of my imagination. Life carried on. By the time I got through my teen years, the memory of the bathroom creature had faded. The only person that I had ever mentioned it to was my high school sweetheart. He asked me if I had any secrets. I didn't want the man who I was going to marry to not know about the bathroom creature. Turns out we weren't getting married. A couple of weeks after graduation, we broke up and our stormy romantic story was brought to a close. I spent the first 2 years of my university studies trying to deal with the injustice of my breakup. I couldn't imagine being in a relationship of that level of intensity, to have someone who I would think about every waking moment of my life. On some level, my imagination was on point. I never did meet anyone that I cared about as much as my teen romance. But as the years dragged on, I found that calmer relationships can be just as fulfilling. I met a guy. I moved in with a guy. A couple of years later, me and the guy figured we might as well tie the knot. He was kind and cute and seemed like someone who'd make for a dad that wouldn't force their child to crawl around haunted bathrooms. I was pretty certain of my decision, but on my wedding night, after he had fallen asleep, I got stung with a bit of nostalgia. I texted my high school ex. I just wanted to know how his life was going, whether he had managed to meet someone who made him feel the same way that we felt as teens. During my honeymoon, me and my ex ended up chatting quite a bit. He congratulated me on my marriage and confirmed that he, as well, had never found anyone who made him as crazy as he was in high school. He was seeing someone, but it wasn't too serious. On a more exciting note, he was putting together a plan for a dating app that would hopefully ensure that people who are as compatible as we were in high school could find each other in a more long-term period of their lives. He needed someone with marketing experience to help him run the app. I had marketing experience. We got into business bed together. The night we hit our first 1,000 users, we got into a real bed. On the lonely nights, when I drink a bit too much wine and every show I watch has the narrative consistency of chalk, I think back to the good times. They always seem much longer, but in reality it was just about 2 weeks. 2 weeks when the guy I married was oblivious to my affair, and the guy who I was sleeping with was the way I remembered him in high school. Yet affairs are not built to last. My husband's ignorance soon turned into suspicion, and a rift between me and my high school love started to appear. Within weeks of suspicion turned into absolute certainty, and the rift grew into a hydrogen bomb-sized crater. My life kept on unraveling until it brought me to where I am tonight. I had spent the entire day dealing with a bot infestation on the dating app. We had become big enough to become a target for Russian propaganda bots, but didn't have the budget to effectively dispose of them. Our users were getting tired of being told which political party was going to instill martial law by devilishly attractive profiles. We were bleeding users, and the co-founder was nowhere to be found. I kept on sending my ex emails, pleading with him to leave personal issues aside and to be a professional. There was no response until the evening. It was a long message, always a bad sign with him. He apologized about being a bad person for a good 7 paragraphs, ruining my marriage, treating our employees poorly, and all that noise. Apparently, the only way to get out of the situation and for him to become a better person was to shave his head, move into a monastery in a place I couldn't pronounce, and take a 1-year vow of silence. He wished me good luck in the future. When I got home, the apartment was empty. All of my husband's things were gone. The only thing he left behind were the divorce papers and a note telling me he wouldn't be paying his share of next month's rent. With the weight of the world on my shoulders, I decided to relax the only way I knew how, by cracking open a bottle of red and frying my brain to the 1999 classic, The Mummy. Halfway through the movie, I opened up another bottle. I woke up in the dark with a pounding hangover. The house was completely still. The only thing I could hear was the dripping of the leaky faucet in the bathroom. For a couple of minutes, I laid on the couch, paralyzed by the fear of how I would face the next day, or the day after that, or the day after that. After a minor existential crisis, I figured that the best way to set myself up for a good day would be to brush the wine out of my mouth and to get some decent rest in a bed rather than a couch. I absent-mindedly made my way into the bathroom to brush my teeth. A couple of steps into the bathroom, and I froze. Oh. I saw him in my bathroom mirror. He sat on the toilet behind me, with his arms outstretched, his face the color of an asphyxiation victim. It had been years since we last met, but I could recognize him immediately. He was no longer a child. Now he was a decomposing man. In places his skin was ripped, revealing traces of ashy bone, yet the network of veins still covered his body. His heart beat heavily as he extended his hands towards me, as if begging for something. Oh. I slammed the bathroom door and locked it. I don't know what to do. I keep on periodically opening the door a crack to see whether he had disappeared, like he did the first night I met him, but out of the darkness I keep seeing those two orbs of light. I keep on hearing that sorrow-filled whimper. I'm exhausted and hungover. I want to go to sleep. I want to wake up to a calm morning where I put my life back in order, but I can't. I can't fall asleep knowing that this creature is in my bathroom. The words of therapists past keep on replaying in my head. There's a need in me to believe that this creature is just a figment of my imagination. But in my heart of hearts, I know it's truly there. There's another problem, though, much more pressing than my sanity or ability to sleep. 2 bottles of wine is a lot of liquid. I need to pee.